My story of the journey of my life is now in episode 22. And I've come back from Japan. I've worked for a few more years with the Japanese. And then in the year 1996, the JICA project came to an end. Then my bosses were from this other community that I didn't belong to. I heard them speak about within themselves. They didn't know that I understood the language. They said, take this thing to Kilifi, the thing referring to me. My being posted to Kilifi was not in good faith. It was extremely in bad taste. I didn't have a choice when the posting letter came from the director. So I took a bus and went to Kilifi. And went to Kilifi. On reaching Kilifi, surprise, surprise, at that time the per diem, that is the daily allowance was, for Cambry, was about 200 shillings. And when I reached Kilifi, it was 800 shillings per night, 4 times the Cambry payment. And I reached and I found they had booked my hotel for 1 month, and they gave me 24,000 shillings. So that was a lot of money. Now, at that time, my salary was about, I think, 6,000, 7,000 shillings. So you see, like I got 3 months pay at once. So I sent a word to my wife. I said, I called her and said, can you bring the children over with the driver? At that time, we had 3 boys. And the cell phones had come. Cell phones, I think, came in 1994. And they were horribly, horribly expensive. A cell phone set was about 250,000 shillings. And the airtime was, again, unaffordable. So it was only the expatriate community who could afford. So our Japanese counterpart had a cell phone. And once in a while, he would allow us to use it to call back home and, calling the landlines. So here I am in Kilifi. My children came with the driver. And we spent all of that money touring the coast from Malindi, Vasco da Gama, Pila, the normal tourist sites, to Kilifi, to Mombasa, Watamu, to the south coast, Shiba Hills National Park, Kwale Town, Lunga Lunga, Shimoni, Slave Caves, all of those sites, Fort Jesus, the port of Mombasa. We had a jolly good time for, I think, about a week and a half or 2 weeks. Then on the last day, just the day before we were to travel back to Nairobi, my friends in Kilifi prepared a lunch for me at the Kilifi Members Club. This was like a clubhouse for civil servants. So we went there. There was good lunch, chicken, fish, beef, and drinks. And then the next day we traveled back to Nairobi. Remember, this is the school holidays. So after the holidays, what do children normally do when they go back to school? Can you tell me what children normally do? The first week, they are given an assignment to write about my holidays. So they wrote, you see that young man up there? He was in, we were in class what in 1996? He was in nursery school, so his 2 elder brothers. They wrote a composition, how I spent my holidays. And let me take you back to the lunch. So at that time, there used to be a beer brand, Tusker, and Pilsner, and they used to come in dumpy bottles, 500 ml, small bottles. And when you ordered, they came 2, mbili. I was a social drinker, so after the lunch, I took a beer, Tusker Export. And the children wrote about the holidays, and they specifically wrote more than a paragraph of this lunch and how I drank a beer. And I said, come on, these guys, they spent 1.5 weeks with me, 2 weeks, they spent all of my money, and they can think only about this beer. That was the last time I drank a beer in my life. If this was the only thing, one of the most important things that my children could remember, then it wasn't worth it, because they had never seen me drink. So it's not correct to say that was the last time I touched. It was the last time I touched beer, but it was not the last time that I touched alcohol. Because fast forward to 2003, December, we were living on along Gong Road, Menelik Road, and we were in a compound of 10 people. We had a Christmas party, and I took a glass of wine, and I became violently sick. I threw up like my intestines were going to come out, because I think, my body had become totally alcohol-free. And then here I was again, taking a glass of wine. It was horrible. So I've never touched alcohol from that time, never. So then after that, what happens? This 1-month assignment in Kilifi led to a continuous collaboration with Kilifi to date. So I have been collaborating with Kilifi not for 1 month, but for over 28 years now, almost going to 30 years. And I was able to save that money and build 5-unit flat in Kisumu, start building this current residence where we are sitting at now. And that's a story for another day, how you can start little, but develop to whatever you want. So when I was in Kilifi, I also got another job with a company which had just started up called Anna Labs. And they were offering me a salary of 40,000. That was very good money. Moving from 8,000 to 40,000. Remember, my princely per diem was coming to 24,000 shillings a month. And my boss said, no, I'm not recommending you for this. No. And I felt horrible about it. I thought he was being very mean. But he told me, you are going to go to this new company, you're going to be the best, but how do you grow? But here, you can grow. And at that time, even when I was working in Kilifi, I was working as a lab technologist. But in the year the year 2000, I was able to go to Kenyatta University and do a Master of Science degree in infectious disease diagnosis, which I finished in 14 months, 1-4. I don't know whether that's still a record at KU, but probably it still is. But even though I finished my master's degree in 14 months, I couldn't submit my thesis, and I had to wait for the 18th month, because the course program said that you take between 18 months and 36 months. So I had to wait for that time, 18 months. So 2000, and I graduated in 2002. 2003, I started my PhD work at Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology, JKUAT, main campus. We were the first PhD students in the Institute of Tropical Medicine and Infectious Diseases, ITROMID. We started in 2003, April, and 2006, June, I graduated. Again, record time. With my PhD. So I've had my PhD for almost 20 years now. And immediately after graduating, I joined the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, Kenya. So how did I join this? When I started my master's degree, people said, Sasa Wewe, at your age, why don't you use this money to buy land and build and whatever? Those people who told me that, hawajajenga, they're still staying in rentals or Kemri houses. Mimi nimejenga. Now I have property, I think approximately about 100 million shillings. Yes. So yes, I invested my money in education. My salary at that time, my wife was also going to school. My children were going to school. The total school fees in our household per year was about 1,000,000 shillings. And yes, we paid it. How were we able to pay this? Every year in November, we would check a cooperative savings and savings loan and pay off the fees for the following year. Then we would live on ugali and sukuma wiki for the whole year. But that made sure that our children went to school and we all went to school. How did my wife start going to school? That's an interesting story. Let me take you back, even though it's jumbled up. So one day from Kilifi, I came back, had some money, and I gave my wife 5,000 shillings. And she asked me, "What's this money for?" And I said, "It's yours to spend whatever way you want." Really? Really? That was 1997, early. So one day she told me, "I'm going to school tomorrow." Which school? Kenya Polytechnic. To do what? So I'm going to school. I'm going to class. Where did you get the money? Sinile pesa ulinipatia. Which money? I had forgotten about it. She told me the 5,000 shillings you had given me. Yes, for one semester, for one term. So she went and started the junior lab technician course at the Kenya Polytechnic, which is now the Technical University of Kenya. So the second term, I paid for her and also got her attachment at Cambridge Walter Reed program. She did such a fantastic job that she's been working there for the last 30 years. She never left. So she was hired as a junior lab technician, but now she's a senior research officer with a master's degree. Somebody who started from junior lab technician course. So it's not how you start, it's how you finish your race. You can start from anywhere, you can start from how humble you are, but stay persistent. I'm also a very firm believer that you don't leave anybody behind, you don't leave your family behind. So here I am, I could have gone on and done my master's and my PhD, and my wife didn't have any qualification. Then I would be going for what? For ndogondogos? For whatever those people who are qualified? No. Make sure that when you lift yourself, you also lift your wife and children, or you lift your husband and children, as the case may be. So we also were lifting our children. We made sure that they went to extremely good schools, high school, primary school, they went to city council schools. High school, they went to Sunshine, all of them. That was a very, very, very good high-cost private school in Kenya at that time. And upon which they did very well. The first one is now doing his fellowship in cardiology in the United States. The second one is a veterinary surgeon somewhere in Kenya. The third one is an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. And the fourth one is a soon-to-be advocate also of the High Court of Kenya. So when I was doing my PhD was on the pathogens that are found in food handlers. Because previous work that we had done, we found that if you eat food in a kiosk, then it's extremely very good quality food, because the food is cooked fresh and served hot, and there is no leftovers to be served tomorrow, as long as you don't drink the water in the kiosk, in those vibanda. However, in the five-star hotels, on the other side, you've got the salads, you've got foods, cakes and things like that, which stay for days and days and days and days. And so you get more infected when you eat in those. So I wanted to find out, what are these pathogens? So that was the essence of my PhD work. I did part of it here, and the lab work I did at the International Center of Diarrheal Diseases Research in Dhaka in Bangladesh. I went there, I didn't even have money to stay in a hotel. So they found a host for me, an old Muslim family. They took care of me. I can never complain, and I'll be eternally grateful to them. But one time, they knocked at my door and they asked me, "What is that music?" And I said, "I'm just listening to music." "Are you listening to Christian music?" And I said, "No." Um, then it quickly entered my mind that this is almost 100% Muslim country, and I would be in serious trouble if they found that I was listening to Christian music. Well, I would have chosen to be a martyr and said I'm listening to Christian music, and then they chop off my head. But I think one Jesus in 2,000 years is enough. I didn't want to become another Jesus. So then one day, as I was leaving the lab and waiting for a tuk-tuk to take me to my house, this white man also comes and say, and because we are both foreigners, you can tell you are both foreigners. He said, "Hi, how are you?" "I'm fine, thank you." "And who are you?" "I'm Joe, I'm from Kenya." "Really?" Say, "Yeah." And he said, "I'm Rob Bryman, I'm from the United States, and I'm working here. But interesting because I'm going to Kenya. I'm going to work in Kenya." "Really?" "Yeah." So we chatted and he told me, "Get in touch with me when you come back home." He asked me what I was doing. I told him and he said, "Get in touch with me when you come back home." I said, "Thank you." So I stayed an extra 1 month, finished my work and got on the plane and came back home. I also took the time to finish my dissertation work there. So when I came back home, my supervisors looked at it and they said I could submit. So I forgot about this man. Then one morning, I hear somebody in the corridor saying they're looking for Oundo. Somebody said he's in his lab. So this man came to my lab and says, "I am Dr. Karaoke Njenga." I say, "Yes." "Rob Bryman is looking for you." I say, "Who is Rob Bryman?" "He's the director of CDC." I said, "Okay, I'll come tomorrow." I said, No, he's looking for you now." So we walked to CDC. I said, "Hey, Joe, hey, you came back." "Yes." "You never got in touch with me." I said, "Sorry, but I'm here now." He said, "Okay, did you finish your PhD?" I said, "Yes, I have submitted. I'm waiting to defend." I said, "Okay, you're hired. You're now the deputy lab director. That is your desk. This man, Karaoke Njenga, is your boss." Just like that, I was hired to work for the CDC as a COAG staff. COAG means cooperative agreement. So essentially, I was a local staff. So what I did was I went back to Cambridge and I requested for a leave of absence. I was granted a 1-year leave of absence to go and work for CDC. They doubled my salary, so that was good. After 1 year, I said no. I resigned and came back to Cambridge. Why? I said, because Cambridge, even though it's paying me a slightly lower salary, Cambridge at that time was paying me about 100,000 shillings. Now let's go back to the 8,000 years earlier when people were telling me I shouldn't do my PhD. I should buy property, but which property would have shot my salary from about 10,000 to 100,000, and then from 100,000 to 200,000. So I said, even though in Cambridge my salaries are just about 100,000, I have a lot of time free for myself to do other things. Because at that time, I was also teaching part-time at Kenyatta University. I was teaching part-time at Jomo Kenyatta University. I was doing a lot of other things. But being at CDC, it's a full-time job. You cannot do any of those things. You're not allowed. So I came back. And Rob Bremen called me back and said, "What would it take to get you back here?" And I said, "You have to hire me as a FSN, Foreign Service National. That is to be employed by the American Embassy directly." So they said, "Okay." So they advertised the job. And they said, I have to compete against everybody else. No favoritism. So I applied for the job alongside one of my PhD supervisors. So we were shortlisted. I was interviewed for the job, and I got it. Now, I got the job as a public health specialist, and also as the resident laboratory advisor in the Kenyan Field Epidemiology and Laboratory Management Training Program, FELTIP. I was also the deputy lab director in the program. This was International Emerging Infections Program, IEIP, at the CDC, and also lab director of Kisumu. So you see, I was almost doing 4 jobs at the same time. But the FSN job came with its benefits. Constant travel all over the world. You're getting paid every 14 days, meaning that, we had 23 pay periods and a bonus payment at the end of the year. So by the time I was joining CDC, my corporate savings was about $1 million. But I worked for CDC for about 8 years. By the time I was leaving, I had done a lot of the housing investments, educated my children. We were touring the world, and now we were having a soft life with savings of almost 5 to 6 million shillings in the cooperative at that time. So you see those tremendous growth. My first trip was with the CDC was to Brasilia in 2006. There was the TEFINET. TEFINET is the worldwide association of field epidemiology and public health training programs. So we had this annual meeting in Brazil. Then we had another meeting in South Africa and Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur, and all over Australia. Now we were traveling the world. And as a FSN Foreign Service National, which means that I had direct access to the embassy, and I would get my visa stamped, and I would travel to the US, to CDC Atlanta, at least once every year. Now, if you remember from my earlier episodes when I said that when my father died in 1978, because I was going to go to school, when I wanted to go to school in the US, Howard University, and I couldn't. From the time I joined the CDC in 2006 to now, I have been to the United States more than 50 times, 50. And I have never paid my way to go there. Somebody's always paying for me. So the benefits. So again, I'm just going back to those fellows who told me, you don't need to go to school. You need to buy a plot of land and do something. So that has become my mantra. Every job that I've had, the first meeting that I have with my staff is to tell them, go to school. Because we can take away everything from you, but we cannot take away your brain. Going to school, doing my master's degrees, doing my PhD has enabled me to travel the world. I've been to a total of 42 countries. My wife has been to more than 12 countries. Our children have traveled all over the world because of going to school. And not only going to school, but being extremely good at what you do. Be knowledgeable, be the expert. So I became a resident advisor, and this program involved recruiting and teaching doctors, medical doctors, and laboratory scientists as field epidemiologists and lab managers from all over Africa. This was the first program in Africa. And I got an award, a CDC award, for having been responsible for creating this program, the first program of its kind in Africa. This is modeled after the EIS, Epidemic Intelligence Service of the United States. So it's a public health program. And our students, the students that I've mentored, that I've taught, are now working for WHO, are working as a senior level managers in ministries of health all over the world, from Russia to South Africa, to Angola, to Mozambique, to Cameroon, Nigeria, you name it. They are all over. They are the people who have been responsible for outbreak investigations, for COVID, for Ebola, for Marburg, for Rift Valley fever, you name it. They are also the people responsible for public health system changes and improvement in this continent. So yeah, that has been the life. And one day, I was fed up with my job at CDC, and I walked away. On a Friday, I just walked out and never looked back. The following week, I got a job with CDC in Angola. So I went to Angola, I went to Tanzania, applied for the visa to go to Angola. At that time, the Angolan embassy was not in Kenya, so you had to go to Dar es Salaam. I applied for the visa, got it, and I went to Angola. Angola, they speak Portuguese. I'm coming from an English-speaking country. I have to teach master students in Portuguese. So I bought a software called Rosetta Stone. And in 2 weeks, I could speak Portuguese. In 1 month, I was teaching not primary school children, not undergraduates, but master's students in Portuguese. So I worked in Angola, and then while in Angola, I got another call from Kericho, from the Henry Jackson Foundation for Military Research International, AJF MRI, who are doing a collaborative program with the Walter Reed program and Cambry in Kericho. And they offered me a job. I consulted my family. Now, by the time I was leaving CDC, now I was earning about 450,000 shillings per month. So I went to Angola, where my salary doubled to almost 900,000 shillings a month. Go back to the basics of 10,000 shillings and somebody telling you, you don't need to go to school. So coming back to Kericho, I came back at a lower salary. But my family and my close confidants said, come back. Even though the salary is lower than what you're getting in Angola, but you are at home. And my home village is 50 kilometers from Kericho town. From my parking in the village to my parking at the office is 50 kilometers exactly. So I used to commute from the village. But I also had another house in Kericho, because one of the backsides of commuting from the village is you can quickly become the World Bank of the village. Because when you wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning, there are people at your gate, there are people at your door. People coming in with school fees issues, with medical bills issues, with veterinary issues, and all sorts of issues. So lots of times I would stay in Kericho and not come to the village. And then I was able to now start building my home in the village. It's a huge building. One day we will go there and I will show all of you, my viewers, what kind of house we have in the village. But suffices to say that, it is fully solar powered. It has got a heating system and everything. We have got 70,000 liters of water storage. So we have water throughout the year. We have flush toilets. It's 8-bedroom house with I don't know how many sitting rooms are there. So each of my boys with their wives have got their own apartment in that one building. They don't have Simbas. Yes. So I went to work in Kericho, and I worked there for 6 going on 7 years before again quitting, because I got another phone call to go and work in Ethiopia for the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, where I have been since 2019, January. Yeah, that's enough for today.